This is the Digital Trust Podcast. In every episode, we strive to bring support to those of you who serve on the front lines and in the trenches of data and technology. We endeavor to bring understanding to the under-resourced and underappreciated, help remove your stress, and provide relief to your pain. Welcome to the Digital Trust Podcast. Sit down with us as we give you hard-hitting advisory conversations to help you build digital trust with your stakeholders and clients, and actionable takeaways to help you become a digitally trustworthy organization.
Thank you once again for joining us on the Digital Trust Podcast. I have with us again in the studio Bryan Lee from Privatus. Bryan, welcome to the show one more time.
Oh, great to be back with you again.
You can listen to a previous episode if you want to hear a bit of Bryan's backstory. It's very interesting, very actually non-typical. And speaking of, not only is Bryan a privacy expert, but he is also a data governance expert. So at Privatus, they handle data governance situations for some well-known and maybe lesser-known organizations. So let me ask you the first question that I have here, and we are a little bit short on time, so it's probably going to be a mini episode. But Bryan, what are some questions that organizations should be asking themselves, since it's a data governance conversation here today, about their data?
The first question they want to ask about their data is, what data do I have? Right? We traditionally go out and talk to companies and we ask them, okay, let's start doing some data governance and let's identify what your key data sets are. And then you get that really kind of panicked, sweaty look. So the number one question is, what data do you have? The second question I'd ask is, where is it? Is it in a cloud storage? Do you have your arms around where it is? And the third and most important question with respect to governance is, who owns it? If you had to pin a rose on somebody, who is that person? What is it? Where is it? Who owns it?
Awesome. So I think I usually link data management and data governance. So maybe let's kind of group those two together in relationship with one another. What is data governance and why does data governance matter?
Data governance is formalizing accountability for data. When you have a formal accountability, then it matters because then you can start doing all the things with data that you rely on. I mean, if you thought about it for any length of time, you can very quickly see that the quality of the data has a direct impact on the quality of your decision making, and it also has a direct impact on the ability of your business to do the things that you say it's supposed to do, whether it's from transaction data, making sales and contacting customers, to doing analytical kind of predictive data, what are my sales forecasts, things like this. So that's what it's really all about. It's about maintaining that data, managing that data, making sure that the data is put to the use that you expect it to be put to.
So that's awesome. So tying that in, Bryan, to the subject of digital trust and the broader umbrella, how does data governance actually tie into digital trust?
Trust, of course, is tied to accountability, and data governance is your way of formalizing accountability. So we found, for example, with customers that being able to, when you're dealing with a client and the client says, well, I'm not so sure about how this particular data situation is going to play out within your company, to be able to say, look, we've thought about this in advance. We have a governance program. We have people who are thinking about this all the time, and as questions come up, we put procedures and personnel in place to manage them. So I think that data governance, again, is, in a lot of ways, a data governance program is your formal expression of how you plan to manage and execute trust in your company.
Lovely. Beautiful tie in there. Next question for you. I mentioned before about the types of engagements that you get involved in, big and small and medium. Mm-hmm. Are you able to give us pull back the curtain and tell us a little bit about any of those?
Yeah, I can give you kind of a couple of them. So we'll start with one that was more sort of heavily data focused, and this was a gigantic privacy engineering project. So if you can, there are a handful of global airlines, and this was for one of them. And airlines, believe it or not, are complicated data businesses. So you think every time you pull up that app and you want to find out, is my flight going to be on time? There's a lot of stuff going on in the background. And a lot of that stuff involves your personal information. So we helped this company lay out their privacy engineering procedures to map onto their apps and things to make sure that your personal information was maintained and safe, and then routed that all back through their governance program and procedures to make sure it tied into a policy and accountability program somewhere. So that was one of them. Another one, Fortune 500 manufacturing company, certainly a name you've heard of, helped them write their data strategy and then help them stand up from scratch their data governance program, right? So finding all the people, building the data governance council, coming up with the artifacts and agenda items and information had to go on there. And once they had that, arm wrestling with everybody to get these definitions and things built, and then rolling that out throughout the corporation.
Awesome. What about any kind of smaller organizations? Because someone might be listening or watching and thinking, I'm not one of those companies.
Right.
I don't have an airline. I don't really need to care about this because I don't even know really what it is. It's kind of the first time I'm hearing about it.
That's good. So I can tell you, we just finished a project with a tiny little company here in our backyard. This was a company that there are an airport fixed base operator, right? So when airplanes fly in, they fill up the airplanes with gas and they wash the windows. And it's kind of like a gas station sort of other thing, but they also do hotel reservations and stuff. They also didn't have a program together. So they're very, very small. And they're like most companies, one person is wearing 15 different hats, right? And so we got brought in and really the boss called this person and said, guess what? You're in charge. So we helped them really codify those procedures in place, but trying to get the stuff that was most urgent and most important and most relevant for their day-to-day work. So rather than creating a gigantic data governance program, trying to find 2 or 3 key people and getting them aware of what the situation was, and then putting all these documentation pieces into one place so people could reach them and read them, and really making them as SOP, standard operating procedure like as possible. So people could just pull it up, read it, and get on with their day job.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you. I wanted to, in the context of that type of an engagement, can you kind of take us through the journey really quickly from that, non-existent or immature state, say, including the questions that you ask them at the outset of the engagement, through the journey into what mature state looks like for a company like that?
Sure. So the first question we ask is, who's going to be responsible? So you can't do anything unless you have a person who's going to be in charge. Then we say, okay, what are your externally facing requirements? So do you have a website? Do you have emails? What are you doing that's facing the customer? Let's start with those. And then we identify, okay, all the stuff you have that's externally facing, where is it geographically located? Because there's different laws and rules according to where the geography is. Then we come in with them and say, okay, let's start with the external stuff. Typically it's a website. Let's figure out what jurisdiction it is and let's tackle that. And so after you've done the external facing part, you come back and look at the internal part of the company. And the internal part of the company is, let's get a policy in place that makes sure that what we're doing inside our company matches up with what we told people we're doing on the externally facing part of the notice or whatever happens to be. And then we start zeroing down on the key procedures. And usually there are 2 that are most important. One is subject access requests, which is when someone asks for information about their information. And the second one is breach response. And this usually overlies heavily with the cybersecurity team or the IT. So we start with that. Once those things are in place, from then on, then we start doing the 4 Fs. Let's grab the framework and let's start going through the checklist as much as we can.
Get to the 4 Fs as fast as possible.
Right,
Brilliant.
right.
Brilliant. Okay, last request for you. It is not a question per se, but do you have any gifts that you could leave behind with the audience? Is there any recommendations that you've got for us today?
Sure. My colleague, Michelle Denedy, she's the partner in Privatus. She wrote a very, what we would call really a landmark book about privacy and approaching privacy within companies, being respectful of the data part of privacy. That book is called The Privacy Engineer's Manifesto. And she put it out a little while ago, but it's on Amazon, and she has decided to release it for free. So if you go to Amazon and you type in Privacy Engineers Manifesto, it'll pop up and you can get a free copy. And it's a brilliant book because it covers not only the hows, but a lot of the whats and whys. And it interviews a lot of industry experts and ever. So it's really a great introduction to privacy.
Okay, we'll try to remember to put a link in the description for the episode here. Bryan, thanks for sharing your wisdom about governing data with us. And a special thanks to our viewers and listeners for watching the Digital Trust Podcast today. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for joining us today on the Digital Trust Podcast. If you found this conversation helpful, please share it with someone you care about. And if you'd like to receive our monthly newsletter, please click the link in the description to subscribe. And to put your mind at ease, our newsletter will include episode summaries with key points and actionable takeaways, plus a heads up on the upcoming episode guests. Rest assured, it won't be a spammy sales message, and we will never sell or share your information. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.